question number one is, what is the interrelationship between microservices, containers, Kubernetes, and what's the real difference between containers and VMs? And how do you get started to make it work? And we're going to start with Matt for this one.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's a big question. We thought we'd sort of level set. I'm sure there's some people on the call that have got a vast amount of container and Kubernetes experience, and will probably listen to my answer and go, that's not right. And there's a bunch of you going, you know what, I'm here to try and find out what this means. How do I get started? How do I move from VMs to containers? I think this kind of started with the convergence of, I'll tell you a customer story, in fact. I met a customer and they said, the problem I've got, Matt, is that my code base has become a monolithic ball of mud. And the reality is that when I try and make changes out, I poke and prod it from a payment gateway angle, I poke and prod it from a front end angle, and I try and make changes as often as I can. I don't make them as frequently as I can. It's complicated. The interrelationships of all those layers in the application mean that I can't be as dynamic and agile as I need to be inside my organization. So this is really about breaking down that ball of mud, if you like, into little tiny pieces of mud, breaking out these various components of applications into microservices, because then they're easier to handle. I think Netflix sort of coined the phrase that, if it takes more than one pizza to feed the team of people looking after that microservice, it's time to break that microservice into two microservices. So really it's about making the application as agile so you can develop different parts of it in parallel and hopefully and get a better speed to market. Now, those microservices are better to run in containers because containers by themselves are faster and more agile. So this CI/CD pipeline stuff, which I'm sure Ray will talk to you about, collides with this architecture of microservices moving on from a less agile framework and platform in VMs into containers. And then Kubernetes is really how we deploy, manage, scale, orchestrate our containers once we've got them running inside an environment.
Brilliant. Okay, Andrew, can you add to that one?
Yeah, no, I think we got off to a good start there with Matt. I think I like to look at it from a historical perspective because, as they say, history generally repeats itself, particularly in IT. And so, the way I think about containers is really just the next evolution of a way of abstracting applications away from physical hardware. So, if we think about the 90s, we probably had lots of physical servers with operating systems installed, and then we head into the noughties and we end up with virtualization and platforms like VMware and Hyper-V started to really come to the fore, and that was separating the entire server and the operating system and the apps within it away from the physical hardware. I think then as we evolve on beyond that, we end up in a situation now where we're not taking entire servers and operating systems anymore, but we're picking the eyes out, the little balls of mud, as Matt put it, into actually identifying what is the pieces that go into making up and delivering the outcome that we're trying to achieve. And so what it means is from a agility perspective and from an efficiency perspective, we can really just sort of pick out those little pieces that are going to deliver us our outcome and run them as a discrete application or as a discrete container, if you like. And basically it means that from an efficiency perspective, we have the ability then to run those anywhere. It has been said often that we add Kubernetes into a container story. So those little pieces are then orchestrated by Kubernetes. You could think of Kubernetes like the operating system for cloud. So the ability to run Kubernetes across any location, whether that be any of the major hyperscalers like Amazon or Azure or Google, or indeed in your own data centers as well. So it's really a drive towards efficiency and agility. I guess Ray will probably give us a bit more of a hands-on insight as to how he's done that.
All right, over to you, Ray.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I probably just want to add to what Matt and Andrew have been saying, in that it's all about the agility, like the migration, the natural progression from virtual machine delivery, which was sort of the beginning, particularly if you were using Packer, et cetera, to describe the encapsulation of this application that you're deploying upon a virtual machine. And then the evolution in towards a Docker file as your infrastructure as code description. And the way that enabled a coherent experience for developers and system administrators locally and on this cloud provider or on that virtual machine that's running Docker Compose, or as everybody's mentioned, the container orchestration ecosystem that's proliferated. Yeah, and I think if you're already in that process of trying to describe your tooling in like the 12-factor application principles, then you already understand the benefits of that portability, and then the migration away from virtual machines towards containers simply increases decreases the time to spin up these additional resources and increases the security or the confidence that you have in the deployment process. Kubernetes itself is obviously emerged as the de facto standard for container orchestration. I think everybody's cohered around that and its numerous benefits. I guess we're gonna start diving into that in the coming questions.